8:30. Welcome everyone to our latest conversation with creatives. We're so excited to have a little bit of a different take on today's conversation with Creative Circle edition. And we're so excited that you all are here today with us. I know that the chat is active for all participants. So as you're getting yourself settled in, as you are settling into your space and ready to soak up all this knowledge, we'd love to see from you in the chat. What are your favorite fall traditions, as November is just right around the corner? And we're, again, so excited that you could be joining us today. Wonderful. Okay, I love this. Hello from Boston. Wonderful. I'm based in San Diego, so truly cross-continental. Making soup and roast. Love that. Some marathons. Okay. And I see another San Diegan here. So wonderful. Well, we're so excited to have you all here join for us. We can continue to watch this chat blow up, and we encourage you all to connect with one another. And today we're really excited to dive into the conversation of 2025 hiring trends. I'm sure so many of us feel like 2024 has flown by in the blink of an eye. And so Creative Circle and our incredible panelists here wanted to be proactive in talking about what we should be expecting here in the next couple months, right? It's right around the corner. I wanted to also mention that we have not only our chat function, but also a Q&A function. So if you're interested in submitting a specific question to myself or our panelists, we invite you to use that Q&A tool through Zoom. And then a quick reminder that we are recording this webinar. So if for whatever reason you need to pop off, or if you ever want to come back to it for reference or share it with a friend, we fully support that. You will be receiving the recording here in the next couple days. So here I am with Devin, Sam, and Jillian. I want them to hand over the mic and give them the chance to introduce themselves. I'd love to hear from each of you, like your name, where you're based, what you do at Creative Circle, how long you've been with Creative Circle, and then also what are some of your favorite fall traditions? And Devin, I see at the top of my screen if you want to start that off for us.
Yes, welcome everyone. I'm Devin Daniel. I live in Houston, Texas. I'm Vice President Operations at Creative Circle. I've been here almost 10 years, and man, favorite fall tradition. So there's way too many to name, but I think if I had to just like encompass the feeling, I just like the feeling of gratitude for the end of the year, October, November, and December specifically. It feels like reading like the end of a good novel where you can just like tie everything in a bow and people are merry before they have to like start the grind of the next year. So just the feeling overall.
Thanks, Devin.
All right, I'll take it, Jillian. I'm pushy because I'm Sam Funt, Senior Account Manager here. I actually reside in the New York, New Jersey area, and today is my 7-year anniversary with Creative Circle. So I don't know where that time went, but it went by quickly. By far my favorite October tradition, because it does wrap up any day now, is the World Series. Always, even though I'm Canadian, you know, America's favorite pastime still holds a big place in my heart. Can't go wrong with the World Series. The passion gets so intense. I mean, this one's been not going to weigh in on a team, but I think the World Series every year, always a good time.
We have Dodgers and Yankee fans filling up the chat right now, so that's wonderful. And Jillian, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I'm Jill. I am from Toronto, originally from Montreal. I am on the recruiting side here, and Monday is my 11-year anniversary. So Sam, you and I hired at the same time.
Good people come around in October.
And honestly,
November.
I have a sweet tooth, so I think just like my fall tradition is Halloween and eating my kids chocolate and candy. Because they are 5 and they both don't, eat it. So
I love these. I love these. Thank you so much. And as you can tell, we've really packed this panel with a lot of experience, not only at Creative Circle, but specifically in the creative, in the digital and marketing realm. My name's Ashley. I forgot to introduce myself as we began this moderation, and I've been with Creative Circle for 13 years now. I am the manager of our employee culture and community development team, and we're so excited to partner with marketing here to share these insights with so many of our guests. So let's go ahead and actually dive right into this whole concept of AI in hiring. Now we're gonna add a poll here for so many of our guests to participate, and we wanna see if you've used AI tools to help with your job applications. There's a couple different options here, so please go ahead and include your response. And I wanna pose this question to our panelists. With AI being used more and more now in hiring and in job seeking. Again, that's both by job seekers and by employers. I'd love to hear what's happening and what are some of those results. And let's see, let's start with you, Jillian.
I think everyone is, when I get applicants to my jobs, it seems as though everyone is just doing like the blind apply on the job boards. So to me, that's just like you're going after keywords and you are applying to the jobs. And then of course I respond to these applicants asking them like what you're interested in, do you have the Figma experience or do you have that marketing experience? And most replies to me are, can you send me the job description again? So I would say that, a lot of people are just using the blind apply or the AI to like connect them to jobs. And that's cool. If you do that, then maybe just keep a tally of like what jobs you're applying to via what, agency or corporation or client or agency. So yeah, I'd say that.
I think that's very insightful, especially because Creative Circle is made of humans that are trying to help with this process. So remember, there is another human on the end of the line. And as our poll showed, we have, I think it's like over 60% of our guests saying, of course, they've used AI tools to help with job applications. So I love what you're saying, Jillian, here. Yes, use the tools at your disposal, but also remember the human connection. You want to start off the bat with a really good first impression. So keeping track of that, all those great recommendations that we've seen over the years. Devin or Sam, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to say, like, I'm encouraged by the poll because that's exactly what I found. Candidates are being super savvy these days, and they are and should be using AI in their interview process and hiring process in many different ways on the candidate side. But at the end of the day, like what Jillian said rings home. Make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever tools you're using, you need to be able to speak to and not misrepresent anything. And also a big one is resume parsing, which I am totally in support of. And, there's talks about how you need to make sure that your resume is matching up to keywords. However, you don't want to go too crazy because the tool will actually pick that up and kick it back if you are marking at 100% every single time. So just some little pointers to keep in mind if you are using AI to help you along the way.
I appreciate that, Devin. I feel like I remember that too. Back in my college days, professors were starting to use a lot of tools there to make sure that people weren't just stripping things off the internet. So the tools are still available to professors and to hiring managers. Sam, anything else to add about ways that people maybe should be using these or things to keep in consideration to make sure we're still adding that human element?
Well, I think the big one is the paranoia that's running rampant with AI now. I still write the job descriptions that are going out for my clients for Creative Circle jobs. Wish I could just say AI generated them all. That would save me a lot of time. But, there's a whole human touch side that's happening here. And I think what we've seen a really big uptick in is candidates actually coming in saying like, I thought this job description was AI generated. There's too many details. It's like, no, someone actually took the time to meet with our client, try and understand the need, and try and ensure that the pertinent things are out there so that our recruiters are making the best matches. I think Devin and Jillian really hit both nails on the head with the keywords piece. The other side of it is like we're hearing from clients the concerns that things are reading too much like they're AI generated. Like great launching off point, great starting place, but then put your spin on it. I think we've all sat in front of that blank page for a cover letter before and don't know what to write. That's a great place to start, but make it yours.
I love that.
So if you're going to put like a technical skill on your resume, just make sure that you know it, because chances are if you see it in the job description, just put it into your resume, and then the client will pick up on that, ask you about it, and then you're going to probably not be able to explain what that program does if you don't know it. I find a lot of clients are, if there's, and I'm using Figma because this just happened, but like a Figma expert, they will be able to tell right away if you aren't in fact a Figma expert, and you just put it on your resume so that it's like called out and you get the interview, but then they will ask about it. So I would always just say, make sure you know the program if it's on your resume,
Just like so many of those hard skills, right? Back in the day when you were expected to come into the office and start with a sitemap or wireframe, and you sat down at your desk not knowing the software that you needed, that was a little bit of a flag for clients. And let's talk a little bit about that client side, because we have focused a lot more so on the talent using AI. And I really appreciate the insight that y'all are bringing in terms of like use AI as a tool, but not necessarily a crutch. We're all using it within our day-to-day lives to help streamline our processes. But just, again, remember that importance of adding the human element to everything that you're sharing to really put your best foot forward and focus on that first impression. On the client side, have you seen hiring managers use AI to evaluate job applications or even sometimes respond to candidates?
I would say, to jump in here, at the organization level, like applicant tracking systems have been around for a while, right? So yes, of course, hiring managers are utilizing these tools. And in fact, like back to Sam's point about paranoia, the positive side of these tools at the very onset of applying is they can actually review way more candidates than before. So there's no way that humans could get through a pile of 1,000 resumes. The good news is the AI can. And I know that it feels really weird for a lot of people right now because 2024 has just been weird in hiring, but that is because these tools are not yet perfect. So continue to rework your resume and rework it again. And then the thread that we were talking about before, at the end of the day, humans are interviewing in the final stages and they are working with you in real life when you get the job. So personal relationships are going to remain key here, but absolutely companies are utilizing these tools.
Yeah. To speak further to that, when it comes to job exercises that clients will make a candidate do before getting the job, or even the 30, 60, 90 plan that sometimes a client will have, senior candidates do before getting the job, they will put that through an AI tracker. Clients will definitely put that through an AI tracker. I've had it where a candidate got a job, and then within the first maybe week, they had it was a social media strategy plan, but they came up with an 8-page strategy. The client said it was amazing. I don't know how they got this idea, but they put it through an AI program, and 90%, they were able to see that 90% of that plan was AI generated. And there are so many, I Googled it this morning, there are so many programs out there that are free. There are extensions on your Chrome, right? There's Scribber, I wrote it down, Scribber, GPT-0, and Winston AI. Those are very popular programs that a client will use just to like ring your document through and just see how much is you and how much is the AI. So I think that's really popular with clients these days too.
And what we've also heard from other conversations with creatives, we actually have at least 2 on the topic of AI. If you have not had an opportunity to watch those, I'd highly recommend it. Those panelists were using AI in their jobs. So they're candidates that we've worked with in the past. And one thing that they talked about was just asking the client, letting them know, I really do like to use AI as a part of my streamlined process. What do you want me to know in terms of like, how comfortable are you using those programs? Is there any proprietary information? Because that's where it gets a little bit sticky. So thank you so much for that insight. I wanted to move on to the idea of AI affecting the demand for labor. And we have another poll for our audience here asking if they feel that AI is replacing old marketing and creative jobs. So please do go ahead and share your insight in using that poll. And I wanted to talk to our panelists specifically. The top fear about AI has been that it will replace human jobs. We've already touched on a little bit of that fear, the paranoia and such. But based on what you're seeing with clients and candidates, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And Sam, if you want to kick us off with your ideas.
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways to look at AI and like how it's going to evolve. AI has been around for a lot longer than I think a lot of us really think about. Software and these kind of developments really started to kind of hit the tech world in the background in about the 70s. It's just in the last 10 years or so, we're really seeing it become more part of everyday corporate environments. I mean, think about when you have an issue with your telecoms company, you probably start with going onto their website and then you're stuck doing some chat response. That's all AI. And inevitably I get on the phone and I'm yelling at some customer service rep because I've spent 30 minutes fighting AI. So things are going to shift and evolve, and there's going to be a lot of headaches along the way. But I think, the good leaders in companies are seeing AI as an opportunity to increase efficiencies for their workers. And there is going to be a shift, but there was a shift when, web design really started to take over, or marketing, when we went from sending out direct mail to emails and CRMs. Things will evolve, but it doesn't mean that the old ways die. It just means that new opportunities present itself. And I think the more all of us can stay on trying to be involved, see where the technology is going to take us, and be open to it, that will kind of create longevity in the long term for everyone in careers, hiring, and both as a candidate and a client.
I greatly appreciate that insight. And you mentioned even something as simple as like direct mail for marketing and how that's shifted and evolved over the years. But yet there's so many companies who just focus on print. In fact, there's a pretty well-known company here in San Diego celebrating 125 years. So like across all those years of evolution, there's still so much to be valued in the tried and true human element of what we do in creative and design. Devin, Jillian, any other thoughts too in terms of how you maybe have seen clients reduce or keep human headcount and how they're using AI to motivate or keep their teams productive?
Yes. So a couple of things. I think we can speak to some of this directly, which is some of the work is going to shift, like Sam said. So that is your marketing coordinator. That is your entry-level copywriter. If you are going into more generalized roles, those are things that I would look at your work and start to upskill or transfer your skills. The companies that are being really smart, they are not reducing any headcount. They are evaluating the talent roster that they have. And I can guarantee you that many of these orgs actually don't know who they're working with because they hired you for a job. But now in this new world, we need you to do a different one. So the companies that are evaluating their talent and then placing those people in the org in the right spots are going to be the ones that end out ahead. So I would say not too much reduction in headcount, but there are mundane or more coordinator level tasks that will be sent to Gen AI because we can, and we can shift that work into higher level thinking work.
I love that idea of upskilling and transferring the skills. And that poll actually showed us that I think just about or just over half of our guests here do think that there's going to be some element of AI affecting how they do in their day-to-day. So thank you so much. Jillian, any other thoughts on like where you see this going in 2025? What you've also been noticing in your particular role?
I think just to back Devin and Sam up, I think that it's not about like AI is not going to replace like jobs, people's jobs. I think there are certain jobs where you can use AI to your advantage to get you ahead or make your exercise or task go by faster or with a little bit of help. But I definitely do not think that it's going to replace headcount. And I don't, to be honest, like in my conversations, clients aren't really expecting that to happen or wanting that to happen. Something came up, first of all, Sam, your chatbot thing. All I was thinking of is like when I'm on with a chatbot and I'm like, you are not helping me, enter. You are not helping me, enter. So EQ over IQ, I think is not something that AI can do. And as a recruiter, someone who meets candidates all the time, I really consider myself a matchmaker. And I say this to people all the time when I'm talking to them, like, sure, you know your skills, you went to school, right? Like, or you learned this online. So it's the technical skills, easy, right? Once you have them, once you're in your skill set, once you found your passion, your industry. I think that the EQ, it's about the match with the client. It's about wanting to work on that brand all the time or every day. It's about wanting to work with that team all the time, every day. There are certain things that a client will look for in the interview that AI cannot do, right? It's about how you match with the person and if you want to work with them every day. So EQ.
There was an analogy that I heard on a podcast recently that was talking about, yeah, there's certain roles that like may get more automated or, you know, may have a lot of change to them because of AI. But an example that they gave was like nursing programs, you know, like there's that human element that a robot cannot come in and have that same effect and have that same care for their patients. And I feel like that's something that I truly can feel the creative and advertising and digital community can really also agree with. Like we're here with connecting people and telling stories, and that does take a lot more EQ than what we're seeing throughout these different developments in technology.
And also like personal anecdotes, right? Like that's what connects you to somebody. So I think when interviewing, that's really important too, to show like, you know, what your hobbies are and what you like doing on the weekends and about your children or about your pets. Like, I think that is super important. And again, like that's not happening with AI, obviously.
Personal anecdotes
Yes.
and also, like
Yes.
experiences. Yes. As we continue on with this conversation, I want to also take a minute here to talk about the client preferences. And we have another poll going out to our guests here and kicking off here shortly. But the concept that we really wanted to cover is that one of the most important questions that's always impacting job seekers seems to be a very simple one. What are employees looking for in their candidates? And that is a very broad question and a broad theme that I'm seeing not only and again in the Q&A function, but also in the chat. What are hiring managers looking for? And I'm really excited to have open this up to our panelists as well as we continue on with this conversation. What are some of the emerging skills that you've been hearing from hiring managers that they are prioritizing? Maybe that they saw more prioritization for 2024, but also that they want to keep spotlighting and top and center as a focus for 2025.
All right, I'll take this one. I think this goes both emerging tech, but like just across the board, the advice that if I could shout it from the rooftop, I would to everyone and anyone who will listen. Metrics. Your resume everything's measurable. I mean, not everything, because I still get direct mail, and I still end up going to theater shows based on the direct mail flyers. So not everything's measurable, but a lot of what we're doing in these spaces is measurable now. So if you work or specialize in a space in data marketing, talk about budgets, talk about your numbers, talk about your conversion rates, anything you can lean into on that, irrelevant of AI, is going to be valuable for you standing out on your resume long term. And then when it comes to the AI side of it, I mean, I am starting to see kind of requests for AI prompt writers and people having a bit of that experience in their background, but still so much of it from my conversations with clients is like, everyone's trying to figure out how this is going to fit into their ecosystem. And what will that mean shifting, whether it's like, okay, as the creative team, how are we owning our brand throughout the company long term? Because now we've got someone who's a researcher doing a policy piece and they're able to create their own content and this maybe not beautiful cover page for their report. And so how are we able to leverage AI to help people who maybe aren't visual thinkers put their thoughts into, put it on paper kind of, Or how do we control the brand so there's still kind of limitations and guardrails for companies? We don't want everything going out. We do have to set some parameters on that.
Yeah, I would say rules and demand, anything that is CRM focused, data focused, like Sam mentioned, growth and performance marketing is also going to be huge, along with SEO, while it goes hand in hand, along with Gen AI and what that's doing with our search engines. I would also say a really big one that is so hard to quantify, but critical thinking and decision making, because as these organizations continue to push toward utilization of Gen AI, we can do outputs all day, but at the end of the day, the humans are the ones making judgment calls on how to drive growth forward. And so people who can quantify that on resumes, on past projects, I think are going to shine.
I find it interesting.
It's so interesting to hear the concepts that you're talking about really aligning with the results that we're seeing in the poll here. I mean, it was a dead tie between skills and emerging technology. Want to take this opportunity to also plug the webinar that we did for MarTech, if that's something that you're interested in. And then the one that was only just slightly ahead of that was the industry experience, which both of you mentioned, not only being able to tell the story with metrics, but also critical thinking to find solutions that might not come to top of mind. Jillian, go ahead.
I find it interesting how the willingness to work in person is like, you know, on the bottom too. I think that that is super industry specific. I think that the big corporations, probably financial, big retail, insurance, well, yeah, that's FI, but you know, those clients are really upping the game with your willingness to work in person. And it's not for everybody, but I do think that there's definitely an uptick. And I feel like that's going to be a trend for 2025 to get people back into the office, which obviously works for some and doesn't work for others. And I should say that I'm seeing that on the Canadian side, the in-person.
I think we're seeing it in the States too.
Yeah. Okay.
Overall, that there's been the avalanche is coming.
Yeah. But do you find it industry specific? Because to be honest, like startups, tech companies, like those people are usually open to more than just like their locals. But it really, to me, it's like the big corporations that have multiple offices locally or in your city. But they're like 3 days a week on site, which is really, I find, pushing a lot of people in the other direction.
Yeah. No, I think come January, it'll be interesting, or through the first quarter of 2025, like what's going to be the ripple effect of the 5 days a week on site for Amazon. Yeah. You know, like that's the elephant in the room. That's going to drive a lot of different conversations. I think, you know, CEOs are talking about bringing people back. But yeah, I'm with you, Jillian, like definitely industry focused and then pushing it when it is harder to find skill sets. Like if you really want someone who's checking every box, you know, it goes back to that age-old descriptor. Like you can have something good, you can have it fast, you can have it quick or whatever, you know, fast, quick, cheap. Thank you. You can't have all three. You know, good people are going to have their pick of choices in good market. And as Devin touched on, like 2024 has been an interesting year that way. And there will be people who will go back, but you know, they'll move on for remote opportunities, and there will be I think a bit of a brain drain that's going to happen too.
Yeah.
I know this has been challenging for so many people in the industry trying to acclimate for what clients are looking for, what companies are looking for. And I, in fact, just connected with a close friend of mine whose job is kind of in this not quite sure what they're expecting in January space. And something that she said is that like, I really can't make a plan, and I'm going to try to put all my focus on things I can control until I get to that position. And I hope that can be a message of a motivation. The other options here, like what we've talked about in terms of industry expertise and building your skills and emerging technology, doing what you can to really focus on that and make yourself, like all three of these panelists said, the most marketable person no matter where your location, if you're not able to get on site. I did want to talk about specifically with candidates wanting to upskill and position themselves to be the right fit for employers through the end of 2024 and into next year. What do you think they should be learning? And a question that even came through the chat is like, where can they learn this? Where can they start to craft their skills? So one example specifically was already mentioned by you, Jillian, was Figma. But yeah, are there other softwares, technologies, experiences that you recommend to candidates in making themselves most marketable?
I mean, it used to, like, to me, in my first couple of years here, it used to be that a graphic designer only needed to know Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, right? And then you were like, oh, you're a graphic designer, cool. And that's what you expect in the work, in the portfolio. And then as the years went on, there was just this trend where it was clients asking for a graphic designer, but oh, they need Premiere and After Effects, or oh, they need Rhino to make like they didn't, no one likes the term multimedia designer, I don't think. Visual designer became a thing. Figma became a huge thing. Figma only started off as email layout, and now product designers in their UX UI work, they're using Figma #1, and maybe that's all you need to know. Now I talked too much. I forget what the question was. But yeah, I forget what the question was.
So what skills, or you mentioned Figma.
No, I think Figma for design. I will say that. I see, like, I'm reading the chat. Maybe I shouldn't, but I think there are a lot of designers here. I think if you are going to learn one skill and you don't know Figma, it is Figma. But also, that being said, Figma is newer. So if you go in saying you have 10 years of experience in Figma, obviously that can't be the case, right? So brush up on it, make it your #1. And I think that is going to continue with Figma and until the next thing comes out.
Thank you. Sam, Devin, anything else to add?
I'll just say, like, I can see in the chat, you know, Kevin, you're calling out, like, not one person can have all these things. I couldn't agree more. As the person who's, like, boots on the ground having those conversations with clients, it's very often like, great, you want a purple squirrel that flies and twirls and drives a Ferrari. They don't exist. You know, we need to prioritize and understand that yes, there are always exceptions to the rule, but for the vast majority of the time, someone cannot be good at everything. And that doesn't matter if it comes to how you write, analyze data, paid media, design. Most people trend towards one segment or another. So, you know, try and have exposure to the different breadths, but also know that, like, you are going to excel in certain pieces of it. And part of our job on a Creative Circle when we're taking in these positions is to really try and educate our clients as well and set everyone up for success, because it's never a good experience if our client comes to us and says, I want all of these things we promised the world, then we can't deliver. And vice versa, if we say, oh yeah, we should be able to find it, and then we're coming to our candidates and continually saying, oh, you don't check every single box here, we need to be working with both sides to, like, how can we advocate to find you the person that hits 80, 85%, and then get them in the door, have them work with you, maybe do a temp to perm contract, and have them also learn on the job. There's so much opportunity to upskill once you're in a job. Be the person who raises their hand to say, I want to take on this new project. I want to be the one spearheading the AI stuff. I want to be the person in the room who's putting their name up. And that's also a great way to upskill if you're currently employed or you're looking to kind of get into something or try different things once you take on your next opportunity.
Thank you, Sam. I think grabbing those reins and upskilling with every single role is such a wonderful thing to remind us all about. And one thing that I've continued to come back to in previous conversations with conversations with creative is YouTube University. There's some incredible voices out there that are talking about what they're doing, how they're adapting, what they're learning in the moment. And while in the past, it used to look like you'd have to pay for a certification, and maybe you'd have to make sure that that certification is in your budget. We've been learning a lot about these free and accessible resources. So I think that that's really wonderful advice to keep in mind. Now, there was another piece here that we wanted to talk to, this trend of candidate preferences. And I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about what we're seeing in the current market. Another poll that we're going to be sharing with the audience is what is most important to you when evaluating the job opportunities for 2025. So you see these options here on your screen. And I want to now tap our panelists for the other side of the coin. Candidates get a say in what roles they're applying for, right? As they should. And if anything we've learned over the last few years is how important it is for us to be, truly invested in the work that we're doing. And I'd be curious to hear what are candidates looking for in roles in 2025. And Jillian, I'd love to start with you as boots on the ground recruiting.
What am I hearing? I honestly like flexibility, remote still. Candidates are loving remote. It's again, when we put a remote job, we get so much more response than if we're 2 or 3 days on site. I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat about like the market. Obviously, the market in Canada is different than the market in the US, but I feel like to touch on that, the market has been really terrible. So I think candidates, like from what I'm seeing starting a couple weeks ago or within the month, like I do think there's going to be an uptick in the market. I see us getting busier. I think there's going to be more jobs. So I think that's going to make everyone happy. Clients definitely want to hire. I just think that this year was really hard for budgets. So they were like putting off the hiring if they really didn't need to. But I think that will change. And I think that more needs are happening, which is a really good thing for everybody, candidates and clients.
Thank you, Jillian. And we've seen a lot of those trends be, across countries, US and Canada. Devin, anything else to share in terms of insight that you're seeing from the candidate side?
100%. So I think we've said upskilling, I don't know, 5 to 10 different times already on this conversation, but candidates are looking for an opportunity to develop their careers. So that's going to be a good competitive advantage for companies who are looking to retain their talent.
It's interesting to think about what candidate preferences are and how they've evolved over the last couple of years. I know that, I've had this same conversation with my mom, and that's never anything that she was like, I don't have that higher priority right now. But it is something that I've always valued in working at Creative Circle as well. Sam, anything else to that? Or also maybe new things that candidates are looking for in the new year? Or why you feel like it's important for employers to evolve in terms of what the talent is looking for. You've already mentioned a lot of that, the conversations that you've had to really manage with clients and those expectations that you've had to manage as well.
Yeah, I think, clients, it's going to be a rude awakening if we go back to the, 3 days, 5 days on site. I think the labor market isn't going to respond kindly to that long term. And, I think for a lot of people, this ability to work remotely is just so important for people. You think about the amount of time you lose commuting, and that's time that you're not being productive at your workplace. That's the time you're not being with your family. And I think if, 2020 taught most of us anything, it's like, time's too short. We need to spend what we can with our families. And so I'm hoping that companies in 2025 kind of have a bit of a rough and rude awakening to, remote work and finding new ways to collaborate is a path forward. And yes, in person does create a certain environment, but hoteling, where you just come in and you bring your laptop and sit at a desk randomly, doesn't necessarily produce the productivity that they thought it saw before 2020. So, sorry, Devin.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, like, Ashley, your question regarding like, why do employers need to care about this in terms of candidate preferences? It's their engagement score, right? Like that is across the board down this year for organizations. So they do need to care about it because engagement, high engagement equals better work outputs, which equals company growth. So these are very important things that companies are going to need to evaluate. And Sam, remote work or not is a big one, of course.
And I don't think it's even about people wanting to work from home. I think it's one step further. It's people wanting to know that they can travel and still work and not take that PTO. There are a lot of instances where we have clients, who their laptops won't go cross-border or out of North America. So if you aren't able to work, if you leave. And I think that I'm seeing it with a lot of startups where it's like, hey, I'm remote. That means I can work from anywhere, right? And I think that's a big question that people ask in the hiring process when interviewing with.
And Devin, you mentioned engagement scores, but I know that retention is also such a top focus for so many companies, and they want to keep the people, right? The people that they've invested in. I got to call out a chat here. I think it should be a bumper sticker. Traffic is so 2019. But we also had some people share that they've turned down higher salaries because they weren't given that flexibility. So yeah, I think absolutely in alignment with all the shares that you're providing. As we close off this conversation, I know that this is a heavy question about what's your advice, right? I'd love for each of you to share a little bit about what's your advice that you give to employers heading into 2025, and then also your advice that you give to job seekers in 2025. It's interesting because I feel like a couple of these thoughts have been already echoed and mentioned throughout our conversation. But Sam, if you wouldn't mind starting.
Well, yeah, I mean, for employers, I think flexibility, be flexibility and pick the personality. Take the time, look at someone's resume, because it comes in all forms, right? Whether it's, I've seen a couple of things regarding like ageism being brought up in the chat and the questions. It's like, I think about this because I was having this conversation earlier today. People get to a certain point in their career and they're like, I'm done leading. I just want to show up and do my job and enjoy it and clock out at 5:30 and I'm good. Like I've reached the peak and I'm ready to come back. And then there's juniors who are like, throw everything at me. I want this opportunity. I want to drive it. And employers need to get out of the boxes they're putting themselves in. It shouldn't be 3 to 5 years of experience. It should be, what is that experience? Someone really young could be bringing in a lot more energy. Someone really old could be bringing in a lot more energy. There's just no box you can put people in on that one. And I think going into 2025, employers need to remove the boxes, think outside the window, and what can this look like in a multitude of different facets, from like who you're looking for from talent, what that looks like from a collaboration standpoint. Do we really need to be on site? All of those things should be up in the air for conversation. And then on the candidate side, I talked about metrics. For designers, I know metrics is not as doable a thing. So I would say the piece of advice I hear from clients around portfolios is less is more. Bring someone through your campaign. Pick your top pieces and call out what your role in that was versus other people. So if Jillian was the CD and Devin was the copy and I was design, great. List everyone's names. Call it that credit, because it shows that you can collaborate with a team, and also you're really, acknowledging that you're not a one-stop shop and no one should expect you to be.
That was great.
Over.
I'm going to go next. I obviously I am candidate facing. I think for job seekers, there's two things that I would suggest or recommend. I think websites versus piecemeal Dropboxes or Google links with all your files. I think that is a huge thing for clients. You want one link that feeds you everything, whether that's a portfolio site or whether that's something you made on your own. It could be a name site, it could be a Behance site, whatever it is, for all of your work, or the work you want to show off, to be in one place. The second you start sending 10 files here and there, the client doesn't know where to look first. So I think that's a big problem. When you have a website, there's one place to go. It's up, down. It's where you want to send the client, right? So you're putting your umbrella, you're putting your links and your tabs, and you're like telling the client where to go. So you are literally showcasing exactly what you want to see, and you are controlling that. So I think that's really important. Next, cover letters. I'm not a fan of cover letters. If you are going to do a cover letter, and this is if you are applying to roles not through a recruitment agency, because to be honest, recruiters should be acting as your cover letter. They are the ones representing you. They're the ones summarizing your experience and sending you off and pitching you in the best light, right? If you are going to write a cover letter, I think show your personality. Don't make it formal. I think, when I applied to this job 11 years ago, I said something so silly, and my hiring manager liked it, luckily. But I think really that's a place to showcase your personality and just try to have fun with it. And that's the EQ over IQ thing. And then for employers, I think I think the easiest way to put it is the 10 on 10. I don't think employers should expect you to know the 10 on 10, 10 on 10 bullet points that they put in front of your face. I don't think that they should hold you accountable for the 10 on 10, maybe 8 on 10, maybe 7 on 10. The rest you can learn. I know we've been talking about upskilling a lot, and that's where the EQ comes in, where if you have an amazing personality, if you are an amazing fit and you just see something in that person, you give them a chance, and then, they'll show you. There you go.
Devin, bring us home.
I'll bring us on home. So for me, to the employers out there, I would say recognize the times that we're in, but also embrace it. There's no reason for us to be on year 5 of a return to office conversation. We are so much more creative and innovative than that. Invest in your people, advocate learning, and also make time for it. Ernst & Young is actually doing this. They did a skills inventory on their entire workforce. So it helps you learn who your people are. Chances are your org is sitting on a mountain of skills that you don't even know about right now. And 2, it helps you fill gaps with flex benches whenever you need. So be thinking about those things if you are an employer. To the talent out there, I will say, please breathe. I promise it is not you. This year has been weird. Find a partner who can help you prep for interviews. I have a couple of friends who've been on the job market all year long. My cousin as well. So I've been doing lots of interview prep back and forth, reading and rereading, follow up and thank you emails and such. So the other thing that I want to say is please get creative. What you did for a living may start to change more and more frequently, and that's okay. Be open.
Thank you. And thank you all. I know we're just wrapping up our conversation here, but hopefully there was so much insight that y'all have really gleaned from this conversation. I want to take a moment to thank our guests for joining us. Incredible engagement in Q&A and in the chat here. You've given us a lot to think about and given us an opportunity to continue this conversation with you all. And I also want to take an opportunity here to thank our panelists. I know the insight and experience that they have been able to bring through their years of working at Creative Circle, the client and the candidate facing roles that they've had. There's just so much to learn here. So I want to remind you that the recording of this webinar will be made available to you in the next few days. And so if you do want to come back and revisit these concepts, or again, share it with those friends. Devin shared how she's doing some mock interviews and some resume feedback and stuff like this. This is a really great resource, I think, for any one person that's looking for a role right now and even hiring for talent. So thank you again. We look forward to connecting with you again soon, and continue to follow Creative Circle and share any additional resources that you find helpful in your job search or in your talent search. Thank you all.